All right. Good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ring of Hire Show. How you doing, Amy?
I am awesome and I'm ready for the show.
Yeah, it's been what 2 weeks? I think it's been.
It has.
I was telling everybody, Amy's just bringing some great guests on. It's everybody from. We should just call it like a blast from the past or
Oh,
something,
absolutely.
because all the shows, all the people that you're having on here, it's great. How you doing, Marvin?
Hey, I'm doing good, David. Nice to see you.
Good. No, we're gonna have a great show tonight, and the subject's gonna be, how to stay relevant at your work, how to stand out before layoffs, etc. But we know the drill. We'll be right back after this video. All right, Marvin, what do you think? How you like that?
That's pretty cool. I love it.
Was it your life all flashed in one?
It's totally all those words. I get them for sure.
It does. Like I told Amy, the one gentleman, he's from Bart Bagdalash. During COVID, I knew this young kid. I don't even know how old he was on that Fever app, and he did this. I gave him all the words. I don't know. Within 35 minutes, we had that down in one shot. He did. He made that once, and I was like, but we knew each other, so he knew for 2 years. Every time I went by a little video, and he just got to know. And I was like, wow, pain points. That friggin' thing hits every friggin' word for anybody in staffing.
Yes, it does. It sure
So,
does.
all right, well, Amy, I'm going to let you, you're bringing all the guests on, so I'm going to let you do the introductions and we're going to go from there.
All right, awesome. Well, I want to welcome Marva Steed. I had the opportunity to work with her at Pinnacle Airlines, and she was the director of HR. And she's also been an executive VP of HR as well for some other companies. Marva, I am so excited to have you on, thinking about this topic. And I feel like it's pretty relevant for, like, how do you become more valuable at your workplace? And with all of the layoffs, downsizing, just companies like closing, so when companies have to do the layoff and having to decide, what that process is, and then being fair and consistent, so I thought it was pretty relevant. And given your background, definitely excited to talk to you again, and also, really unpack all of these layers with how to become valuable at work, and then what that looks like on the HR side. So welcome and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, my first thing is when Amy said that about that subject is I always try to think what would be my number one thing that I would probably do. And I looked at it as I think knowing all the positions, like kind of cross-boarding, I kind of like whenever I go somewhere, I want to be able to know another position too. I want to be able to learn something from, even if it's the admin. I like to learn different things on the jobs because I think when employers see that, I think that would I guess it just really sets you apart. Because it shows your motivation of trying to learn instead of just, hey, this is just my job. Nope, sorry, that's not my job. I think going that extra bit.
I agree with that, David. I would say the biggest difference that I've seen in layoffs is managers want it's ownership, right? The people that take ownership, the ownership of just the business, not only their role, but just that they own the business and they really they want to do what's right by the company, and they treat the company as if it's their own company. Those are the people, and the trust. I would say ownership and trust are probably the two the biggest things that when you're looking at a team trying to decide which ones you can keep, which ones you can't, you're going to probably focus more on the ownership, those that take ownership, and like you said, those that reach across the aisle and willing to do other things, right? Willing to take on things that maybe aren't necessarily their role.
That is. And Amy?
Yeah, no, and I think when some, and I've thought, some other companies I've worked with where they lay off in stages. So you might have 3 layers of layoffs, and trying to determine who's going to be in the first, second, and then your last layoff, and could be ultimately close the company. But being able to identify how to be a valuable asset. So if you're going to lay off this person, could they actually stay on and take over another role? And then being able to look at, if there's anybody on performance evaluation, things like that. So Marva, can you talk to us about what that looks like from an HR standpoint? I know every company is a little bit different, but based on what you've done, so when you have to do layoffs, like let's say like three tiers, like how do you approach that?
So when let's go back to COVID. I know that's an ugly word, but I will tell you that I was in retail during COVID, and we had stores shutting down. Right, states were shutting down all of our stores, and we were laying people off. We were having to lay people off because we didn't have work for them. They were shut, especially some of the places like Illinois, New Mexico. Those places, they were closed for months. I mean, it was a long periods of time. So the first thing we looked at is we did take those that were on performance improvement issues, that had performance documentation. Just kind of the beginning of, could we just do it? That was our initial plan. It was that we thought this thing was just going to be quickly, right? About a month. We thought we'd get through it. But initially, the first thing, the layoffs came with just those on performance. So we did take those first. The next level, we ended up going into another level as it got further into the fall, because we just didn't have the traffic, and we didn't have traffic to sustain the employees that we had. So we took the next level, and when we did that, we took it based on performance levels. So the top writers, we kept the top writers, and the lowest writers, we started from there at the bottom, right? And then also, I will tell you, in that section there, we also took those that had bad, let me think of a nice way to say this. They were not the nicest employees, right? So they were the ones that caused problems. They were the ones that were very negative. They brought a very, they just were not fun to work with. And so we took those out as well during that second phase. And during, I would say during the last phase, if we were to look at it, if we didn't have to go to a third phase, but if we did, I would say would probably be, we'd probably take more out of the top. You'd have to move from the bottom up, right? Those that are performing less, you go performance. If you don't have anything else to go on, when it would be last in, first out.
Right.
And then you go into performance for sure.
Right. So I'm assuming what, like last in first out, is that more a union, or is that just across the board?
No, that's pretty much across the board. I would say that's the fairest thing to do. After you start with your performance issues on the front end, and then you move in last in first out. The problem with that is, in a retail environment, is you have a lot of top performers that might be your last ones in, who really just get it, and you've got people that have been around a long time that maybe aren't great performers, and you really want to try to keep your performance. So you can do either way. A lot of companies do try, especially at the corporate level. You'll go for, if you have 14 marketing people, you're going to go with your last in, first out.
But in that industry, because I know all 3 of us have worked with unions, and so did I. And listen, I always say with unions, we wouldn't have today what we have if it wasn't for unions. Because when I was non-union, got out of the military, and then my family was all union, and I was their bosses so we were both, and I didn't know much about unions. I would always think that easier wise, if it's a strict union and you got to go by seniority and all that, that's where I used to be like, wow, man, they're going to cut this person here. And you were like, why? The person fits that mold, but you couldn't do that. Now, I'm not familiar with unions nowadays. This is back in the 90s, so I don't know how old
they still operate that way. Yeah, they still operate that way. They do. They still operate.
I mean, that's the only easy way of it, right? Because when you tell somebody, well, he's got 6 years and you got 4, It was a no-brainer back in the night. It was the person with the 4 was gone regardless. It didn't matter.
Yep, that's right. And
It
they
wasn't performance based. It wasn't. So with that being said, and that when you say and I'm learning more about now the retail side, that's a huge industry.
yes,
I mean, I can't even imagine, like you said, top store people. I can't even imagine that.
yes, yes. It's a lot. I would tell you, that first month we laid off 900 people. 900 people. Yeah, crazy. And then some we termed and some we laid off, but we couldn't keep them employed, um,
Right.
because we didn't have work for them. So they needed to get on unemployment. They had no, we couldn't even let them in our building. So there was
Right.
no way for them to earn an income.
I didn't even realize that.
So, what are the interpersonal skills? What are the most critical for long-term success for an employee to be visible and noted by HR and operations and their team?
I would say, for me, I noticed as a leader, I noticed those, and I would say all of our leaders in our business would say to me, they're the ones that bring me the problem with the solution. So people that identify those problems and they bring the solution with it, and they do it early, right? They tell you when, I always say that I like to use the term when the bear is coming. Let me know when the bear is coming. And then those that take ownership of it, right? So
Mhm.
those that identify the problem, bring you a solution with it, not just bring a problem, and those are not most fun. Those are two of my rules. Tell me when the bear's coming, and when you're bringing me a problem, bring me a solution or proposed solution,
You know,
right?
you said that a lot. You've said that a lot, Amy.
Yeah, that is important for me. I had a manager just bring a problem and attempt to dump it on my lap, and I'm like, I don't operate like that. So what is the solution? What do you think is how could we resolve this? And he didn't want to give the answer, but I mean, I needed him to be part of it. But don't ever just dump a problem on my lap and think, oh, you're a director, you go handle it. That's
That's
not how it works. But you know, after he did that, I mean, we were able to implement his solution. So you know, but yes, I agree, Margaret, that don't just dump a problem, give a solution to it.
yes, yes. And in addition, a couple other things I would say, when you see those people that just volunteer for the difficult stuff, those people stand out, right? They're the people that you. Sometimes I go, really? Do you know what this involves? Or you're signing up for this? You really want to do this?
Mhm.
And like, for example, the layoffs. Like I had team members that came to me, everyone was worried, and they came to me and said, let me help. What can I do to help? Let me get involved. I'll help with whatever we need to do to make this happen. And those are the people that really stood out when the time came, down the road, right? So you want to make sure that that you're volunteering, you're great employees doing that, helping your teammates succeed. Team is a big one for me too. You got to be a team player. Got to be willing to work with the team, even if it's outside of your responsibilities. For example,
Right.
payroll has always been in my world, as well as HR. It doesn't always live together, but it has where I've been, right?
Right.
So payroll, you have to have it's one. We're just one team. We're not
Phew.
payroll and HR. We're just one team. So that means HR, if we need it, HR is going to jump in and help payroll. Payroll is going to jump in and help HR. So it's just, being able to help your teammates succeed, I think, is a big one. It also builds a great culture for your team as well. And then you do get noticed that way when you're jumping in and helping. And then taking accountability when things go wrong, big one for me too. Just own it. I always say, no one's going to die. Not a
Right.
big deal. We can work through it. Just tell me what happened, and then let's work through it. They can't eat us, right? We'll figure it out.
I think
Right.
when it comes to like the rumors, how rumors start coming about layoffs, you know, rumors usually have some truth to it. I mean, might not be what you think, but it's coming. That means, and I always wonder, is it too late for someone? You know, because you know you think of the office, or oh wow, they're having a layoff. I'm sure everybody goes through that same thought. Who's leaving? Who's this? And then you might, I think sometimes for some people it just might be too late. You
Yeah.
know, if they're not that, well, all of a sudden, if they're that team player, all of a sudden, you know, or they're trying to help out and do something else, it's like, okay, where were you a couple months ago, or even a year ago? You know, that's where I look at there. What do you tell, you know, the graduation? Everybody, you know, it's graduation month, and But what do you, any kind of advice that you would give new 19, 20-year-olds right now going into the workforce to try to really help them succeed?
I would say that there's several things. One would be make sure you're a part of a team and you're not just working in silos, that you want to be a part of a team. And that and I would say that's pretty critical. The relationship building is so big, right? It's huge.
Right.
So build a relationship with your leaders, not just your teammates, also with your leaders. Because when the time comes and you're looking for promotion or you're looking for whether you get to stay or not,
Right.
those are the people that they trust, and they will handle. They allow those to handle the bigger responsibilities.
Because that's the first time they're going into office, politics, if you want to say,
That's right.
or especially I look on LinkedIn, like all this stuff with Google and all these tech companies. I'm like, wow, that it must be it's like Meta. All of them are just letting thousands and thousands are going. I'm like, wow, where do they go? You know what I mean? It's like it's such a big team.
Well, and I'll tell you, I have a 24-year-old who is in the workforce, and she graduated college a couple of years ago. And the biggest thing for me that I tell her that I see with the people coming out of college is clock watchers. We call them clock watchers. You guys know what those are, right?
That's
So, and I'll tell you, clock watchers are not your. That's not going to get you ahead in the world, in the working world. And so I tell my daughter, you don't need to look at the clock. Just get there on time or early. If you're not early, you're late. I tell her that. And then also make sure you're not a clock watcher. Do not go to your manager when you're a salaried employee and
I
say,
like it.
I need my 15-minute break. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Mhm.
And don't run out at 4:59 like a bell rang, right?
Right.
When there's big projects to be done. Now, if there's no work to be done and everyone's leaving, then it's fine. But every single day, don't watch the clock and run out right before 5 o'clock, because I think
Like a
those.
T-shirt like that. No,
Yeah,
do not watch the clock.
that's right. That's
I
right.
love
Yeah.
it. No, that's true.
Yeah, so I would say that's the biggest thing for the people coming out of college right now, to make yourself really valuable there. Just don't be difficult to work with. Make sure that you get along with your teammates, even if there's going to be people from all different walks of life you're working with. Just build relationships with everyone.
Right.
Yeah, and be likable. Like I think you'd said it earlier, Marva, about being able to play nice in a sandbox and just get along. I mean, just treat
Yep.
people with respect and stay away from the gossip and stay away from the negativity, because somebody's gonna have something to say, and just don't be part of that. So like birds of a feather flock together kind of thing.
Right.
Be careful on who you choose to partner with or what group you decide to go to, because if that's negative in the eyes of the management staff, then now all of a sudden you've got that negativity painted on you no matter what. So really understand, who is who, what is what, and then get a feel for like what group do you really want to be part of, and make sure it's you're really thinking through that and look at it from a lens from in different views, because again you get with the wrong group. I mean you've already set that negative spin in motion.
Yeah.
Marv, I can tell you about Amy. She's not no clock watcher because she was like 80, 90 hours a week. So
I
I,
know she isn't.
I
Yeah.
don't think she knew what a clock was. I mean, that girl could, you were there, you lived there 7 days a week.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so you didn't watch the clock, Amy. I'll give you
Nope.
that.
No clock watching.
There were many of us, I would tell you, that gave our hearts to that organization, and we spent many, many, many hours, and it was so sad to watch it go away, right? But it was, that was what we believed in the company. We believed in the company, we believed in the mission, and we believed in the culture, and that's why we gave it everything we had. We did.
Yeah, and I think when you can walk away, and I think just from these podcasts that we've done, and the people that we've connected with, the culture says a lot. And I think that if you can reconnect in 20 years and still have that common discussion, I think that speaks volumes. And and you and Lorraine being in HR, I mean, obviously that has a lot to do with what you guys help build, and then it's just lasting. It's lasting.
Yes, yes, it did. And I would tell you that if people now that I run into, Amy, from that airline, will say to me, "I'm just looking for that culture again." I'm just looking for that kind of culture again. And I would say the same thing. That's exactly what I'm looking for, right? I want the same culture. I want to be excited about going to work.
Mhm.
I don't want to dread work on Sunday. I want to
Yep.
be excited about my Monday morning. I just don't, and I think everybody wants that. That's really what, this, for the most part, everybody I know, that's what you're looking for. It's good culture. Nobody wants to come into a place where no one can look at you. They're just looking down, trying to get their job done. That's not the most fun place to be. Sure.
Right.
They talk about, and I love that word. We talked before, Amy, a lot about mentorship. About that was a big thing. Again, I keep saying back in the day, but it was that was words then. Now all of a sudden, it seems like it's coming back. But I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, I don't want to show. That's not. This is my job. I'm not going to show them nothing.
Yeah.
I don't want them to show." And I'm thinking, why wouldn't you teach that other person? I know everybody there again. I think like you protect yourself, thinking that they're not going to get rid of me because I know this. But I don't think there's nothing wrong with showing like somebody new. Why not? Take them in, and that word to me is just powerful. I wish companies did more of it.
Yeah.
I wish we had that. Like you mentored somebody, and they used to do that for months. You were assigned to a person back where
Yeah.
we were. We had that person 3 months, and then 6 months, and then it ended. And but you had to join that. And I look back now and I say, wow, I thought it was crazy back then. But
Yeah.
now I kind of miss it because I thought that was great. They mentored you all day just to see what you do.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that it kind of evolved over the years, right? At one point, we many years ago, we decided we would assign mentors, right? We would assign the top writers in our stores to the newest writers in the store, and we would just assign them. Well, that didn't go well because not everybody wants to be a mentor,
Right, that's what I mean.
right?
Exactly.
So we learned from that pretty quickly, that some of them were getting great mentorship, some were getting nothing, and so they were getting a percentage of their sales too, right? So there was some
Oh, jeez.
incentive to do that, right? But they were getting no mentorship. They're just taking a part of their sales. So we kind of backed off of that, and we went back into it with a different approach of, okay, who wants to be a mentor?
Mhm.
So come forward if you want to be a mentor, and then let's build a mentorship program. What does that look like? And so
Right.
we brought those people together and trained them on how to be a mentor. You can't just be a mentor just because it's kind of like the best, the subject matter expert. You just make them a leader. Not everybody wants to be a leader. Not everybody's great at it. So
Right.
just
That's a good piece of the pie, like you're talking about. Just like mentorship, it's not everything, but it's a piece of the pie whether you could stay with the company or not, because
yeah,
everybody's watching that, and it's like, oh man, go to Dave. He'll teach you anything. I mean, everybody just says it, but if you have that person, oh no, that person's known.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Agreed. That's true.
You
And
know, there was
the top writers too will be the first to tell you how great these new salespeople. They really build them up. They encourage them. The new employees, whether it's sales or any organization, they're really going to feel like that the company cares, that they
right?
care enough about me to assign somebody to help me
Yep.
be successful.
I think the approach and delivery is key in this because I'm going back to a company that, created like a buddy program. And, the one thing that I did not want to have happen is to say, you will be part of this buddy program. And some of the managers I was talking to decided they didn't want to put a burden on them and give them more work. And I'm like, but don't look at it that way. You can go to say, Tom, I have seen how good you are with these new employees. Listen, we've got a buddy program, and you are the type of your style and how you're really good at your job, but you really are good with how you train people, work with them. They seem to take after you. What are your thoughts? Would you be willing to do this buddy program? And it's not any extra pay. It is something that you can start stepping up into leadership and get known. So approaching it that way, when after I talked to the managers about it, it became like instead of like jamming more work down their throat, it was a different way of how to get the right people. Like it's not about, hey, I want to do it, but that person really isn't right for mentorship. But being able to hand select and then open it up to see who is interested, is that really did work out well. And then we continue to build and build and build. And then, I mean, it was just such a great program. It was a work in progress, but it turned out to be a really good program. And you when you have that first impression for a new hire, that is being able to be with somebody and ask, where's the bathroom? How do I write this report? It's those things that it's right. The answer's right there, and you got to have the right people in order for that to be successful.
And I think if you come at it like that, like you just said, Amy, with a carrot rather than a stick, and it becomes a reward, it becomes a wow, they think enough of me that I can be a buddy, that I could be a mentor.
Yeah.
That also encourages that employee as well, who's probably got great skills and experience that could translate down to some new hires for sure.
Right. And that's where, the approach and delivery, like that's,
I
once the manager understood, like it's not about, don't think of it, the glass is half empty. Like it's half full. Like look at it through a different lens, approach it differently. And it's all the glass, it's all the water, but look at it differently. And that really, it did well. It did well.
Yeah, that's great.
I think you could learn more too is if you do get laid off, I mean, I think it's less to be learned, like what can I do next time? It's like a learning thing because like I always say, if it comes down to like, and I'm sure you've done more than I haven't, but when it comes down to, wow, it's just a layoff. It's gonna happen regardless whether how good you are or how not. But when it comes down to make those decisions on, you got some really good people. That there has to, I don't care who you are, if that doesn't bother you to make a decision like that overnight or something like that, and then you got to tell that person, I can't even imagine that.
I would tell you I'll tell everyone this, and I've been doing HR for 20 years, and I did legal prior to HR, and I will say it's my least favorite thing.
Yep.
I hate telling someone you don't have a job, especially someone who's done nothing wrong, right?
Yeah, that's what I like that he said it right there. Yeah,
It is the worst thing. It's the worst part of HR's job is to tell someone you don't have a job when they've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, the layoff is definitely the worst. I mean, I've been in several firings, and I literally have not lost sleep when I fire somebody because I didn't do it. I mean,
Right.
they are the ones that had that happen. So, but man, when you've got to lay somebody off, that is the gut wrencher, and that's where I lose sleep because like you don't have a choice, but
You don't. I mean, it just happens, and like you said, you gotta. I like how you said, look at it a different lens when you do lose your job, because at the same point, we've all talked about it, and it's happened to everybody. What are you going to do differently next time, or what can I do to prevent that? Because I think when if you got laid off because of it's based on performance, you're probably saying to yourself, well, I don't know. I think the employee knows it. Listen, I know Bob's doing so much better. Bob does this, Bob does that, but I don't. And you see the decision, but I just wonder, and like you said, those ones that are really good, it's gotta be hard.
And I'll tell you too, when people leave and they own it, it's it
Yeah.
feels special. It feels better for both, right? When they realize that they've been the negative person in the room for so long and that nobody wants to talk to them because they have been so negative. They know that, right? And they own it and they walk away with it. And then, but it is that no matter what, when you're letting people go because of a layoff, it is the worst experience.
It is. Amy, when you had to look at people, you look at process improvement, like a person that always is just, you got those people that really want to try to help, and they give you so many different ideas, of how to improve the process. I've always learned, sometimes it's not going to work, but I'll listen to the person because you have to, because sometimes you'll be like, damn, that's a good friggin' idea. What they're saying, but how do you look at that, Amy? Like with the process improvement, is that something that I'm sure that can help you within your career of always trying to come up with, again, solutions, but also to improve the process? There's nothing wrong with you going to your boss and says, hey, a lot of people I think are afraid to do something like that, and the worst thing they're going to do is say no.
Right.
That's it.
Well, I think everybody should be heard when they have something to say. And I mean, if it's just going to be a bunch of negativity, I'm not going to, allow that. But if somebody is willing to come and talk and give advice or give a suggestion, I think there needs to be a committee for that anyway, like ideas that make a difference, where it's an open forum. Everyone
Right.
feel free to provide some information. And I'll tell you, Dave, the people who have the answers are the ones who are currently doing the job. It's
Yeah.
not, you're not going to get that awesome answer from, the director and VP. You're going to be getting that information from the people who are actually boots in the ground
Right.
doing that work. So absolutely listen. And I mean, yeah, you can't implement everything, but if you listen and you understand what that and what are they trying to get to, and then maybe you can help bridge that gap, and then make sure that they get awarded and acknowledged for
Right.
that discussion. And this is what happened because of them talking about this idea and plan. And what is it going to save? It's not. And I learned a long time ago that you don't talk about how much it's going to cost. You're going to talk about how much it's going to save. And so
Like that.
when
That's a
you're
good one. I like
well,
that.
yeah. So being able to, make sure that when they're going to present anything, it's not, well, this is going to cost us $10,000. Well, how about we say if this is going to save us $15,000, and make sure your math backs into that. But, you have to listen. You've got to, everyone wants to feel valued and important and that they matter. And if somebody wants to come and talk to me, I mean, like, kudos, because I don't want people to fear me. I want them to, open up, talk. I mean, just if you got ideas, talk through it.
I can imagine in HR more about how you go through that, especially, I mean, I didn't realize how, those big departments they are and
Yeah.
how much you get involved with these things just like anybody else. There's no difference.
Yeah, and I would say, for me, the biggest thing I tell HR leadership is to be honest with people.
Right.
Give them honest feedback. If someone's coming to you with some crazy idea, thank them for the idea, thank them for sharing the information, but also give them feedback. Like don't just take the information. Like, give them honest feedback. Let them know that, hey, listen, this is you need to find a way to get along with your coworkers. That kind of thing. You have to do both, I think, too. It's just and when you're building bridges between the HR and the employees, you want to make sure that they feel safe coming to you, yet they also walk away with something. Like when they come talk to us,
Right.
great, thank you for the information, but then they go back to their workplace. Man, I feel good about that. I feel good about my conversation I just had with HR.
No, you have to, and I just think that's part of it. I told you before the show we were talking about. I just really think that you got to have that trust, and it's okay to go there with the problems and everything like that. Because if you can resolve problems, then that's going to even help your career in there because it's going to make you perform better. It's going to make it's a part of that pie. How much more of it do you feel? This one's an easy one, I know, but attendance. When you
Oh,
look at attendance, I mean, on all levels. You know what? I always thought entry level, middle management, it's everywhere. It doesn't matter what profession you're in. It's like they called off again, or they call. You know what I mean?
yes.
It's no difference.
And I'll tell you, I see companies today really, like in our day at the airline when I worked with Amy, she could attest to this. We didn't have time for people that were late, and so when you showed up for a meeting late, the door was locked. You couldn't even attend the meeting, so you had to be on time or early. And so that to me it was such a big deal. And what I learned after leaving the airline is that not every company works that way, and not
Right.
everybody's on time for meetings. And then you have to be like, but when you're wound up so tight, like in the aviation industry, and you work, you got to be on time. It's your bread and butter. Then you got to like you have to learn a new way of life. And watching people come in at all hours of the morning, and you just go, my goodness,
I know.
where did this come from, right? But yeah, and companies are kind of changing. And over time, I'll tell you, even in the retail industry, we changed our attendance policy. We loosened it up because we had so much turnover because people just couldn't get to work on time. And then we loosened it up a little bit, and then they started to really, get kind of got back
When I
into.
was with Staff Mart, they went with. I couldn't believe it. I was here for 10 years. They came out and they said, okay, how many weeks vacation you get? Unlimited. How much time off sick days do you get? Unlimited. We were like, all the ones that have been there for a while were like, wait a minute, I got 3 weeks now, so they're going to get 3 weeks too? Oh my God, it was like I
Oh,
guess, I look back now because it just didn't make sense. I was like, what do you mean? So the person, that calls off all the time, as long as their work is done, as a boss, you would be able to say, okay, you're off, you
yeah.
know?
I don't know how
And
you run a business like that, but they're doing it. Yes.
it was a double-edged sword because then you would be like, tell HR, well, I didn't approve it. Why? Well, because they're coming in late all the time. Did you document it? Oh, because that puts you in that position of, wait a minute, you're denying somebody something they don't know about it.
That's right. That's exactly right. There's
But
a, there's
that,
a there's a saying out there for HR that sits on. I actually have one on my desk, and it says, "But did you document it?"
It's
but
not in writing. It didn't happen.
That's right. It didn't
they're
happen.
saying that to you, it'd be like, so how much vacation? In an interview, my first one, I was just like, I'm going, doesn't matter as much as you want. They're looking like, what the hell you mean? And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah. I said, but you know what though? A lot of people didn't do it.
Well, I'll tell you what. A lot of here's the real kicker on that.
Yeah,
Unlimited PTO and
yeah.
unlimited sick time is you feel guilty taking it.
That's what it was, I think. Yeah.
So they actually win, even though the employee feels like, wow, I get unlimited. No, you
Yeah.
still have to do your job.
Right.
So you can take off, fine, but you're still responsible for your job. And so they people just because they didn't have an allotted amount of time, they didn't take it. So nobody
Right.
took any time off, and you felt guilty about it. The only people that took time off were the people the low performers, right? They just
That's
they didn't care.
that's it. Amy, one of my last things I wanted to talk to you about was, and we can chime in about it, is uh, learning, schooling. A lot of companies, oh, here we go again, years ago, they always paid for schooling. It was just part of when you got hired, oh, yeah, you can go to college, part whatever you want, they're going to pay for it. Wow. You don't see that as much unless, I guess maybe certain industries you might. But how much do you think that rides into it also, that somebody's doing self-improvement constantly outside of the company versus because if the companies don't pay for everything?
So I did have a manager that wanted to get a career advancement, and so I was able to go to VP of HR and get approval to help pay a portion of it, and then there was another person did the same thing for her. So I mean, I think that as long as it's a win-win, and if there's got to be a contractual part where you sign that if you leave in less than 5 years, then you have to pay back X amount, and that kind of thing. But that way, nobody loses. It's truly a win-win, and make sure that it's. I mean, you're not gonna have somebody go and go for an accountant when they are have nothing to do with accounting.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's got to be a win-win.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's on my part, the last part. And I said the last part, right? Marv, again, I'm going to say, for my last part, then I'm going to let Amy ask one more question here is, again, if you had, I love this topic. Again, Amy, see all these pages, and we didn't
You
even hit
didn't
it.
even use one, did you?
I don't even use them all because it just, the conversation this turns into. But again, Marva, in your experience, what do you give that, for people that are listening to this, that suggestions, that young person coming into the new workforce again? I really like how you said that.
Yeah, I would just say be a coworker that you would want to be there for you. Be a great team player. Reach across the aisle and understand what your other teams are doing that maybe isn't in your job responsibility. And then also take ownership. Really take ownership of the business. Treat the business like it's your own business. And how would you handle things, right? Learn everything you possibly can. Stay open to learning. Continue learning no matter what. Even if it's learning, like you said earlier, David, learn how to be the receptionist. Learn how to be, learn all of it. Like you want to know how the business runs from beginning to end. I love companies that run a new hire through like an MIT program where it's a manager in training and they learn all aspects of the
I
business.
love that. I don't see that much anymore at all.
It doesn't happen
When
that
you
much
first
anymore.
started, you went here, here, here,
Yeah.
here, spent a day here, but I don't know if it's a cost thing, but no, go ahead and finish, but I'll go on. That's another
Yeah,
subject. But
no,
it's
I
true.
agree. I agree, and I think that's a big. But if you're just coming into the workforce, I would just say, be a coworker that others want to have. Be the one that treat others the way you want to be treated, and get to know have relationships with people. But like Amy said, be careful with those relationships. Make sure it's the good relationships. There's a relationship. You can have great company employee friendly relationships without becoming the same as someone else. You can still be kind and pleasant and helpful and be a great team player with those people that maybe aren't could be perceived as maybe negative, you can still do that. It's totally fine. Just I think it's just more, and then try to be early for work. Just if you really want to set an example, not just for yourself but for everybody else, be early for work. Be there 10 minutes early. Just be early for work. Don't try to hit it right on that very second of your start time. Try to be at work.
You see them running in, you're like, oh, there they go again.
Yes, that's
I couldn't
exactly
deal
right.
with it.
Those people have, that goes into the mind of the leader. Here's this girl running in at the last second, sitting down right at that minute, and then she may go get her coffee, that kind of thing. It's just be committed to the company while you're on their time.
All right, Amy, it's your turn.
Yeah, I think just I think what Marva said before, and Dave, you've heard me say this many times. 10 minutes early is on time. On time is late, and I think just having that mindset, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You either coming into the workforce or getting ready to retire. There's just certain things that are important to make sure that you are a valuable team member, and that you make sure you give HR a little bit of difficulty on, like, oh, do we get rid of them or can we move them to a different position? Give them some angst on that, and make sure that you do the right thing for the right reasons. And I think just those little things really make a big difference on, can you stay or are you going to go?
That is, and so I think everybody. I'm always like that though. My dad, like he was a farmer. He took us all Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. Dropped us off 2 months before graduation. Said, "Get out, I'll wait," and that's the way it was. But when we got out of the military, we went to work for him. We were his supervisors. He would say, if one of us called off, my father would say, "Boy, you get paid to be sick," and you were like, "Okay." But it was serious. You don't, it was his name, and he would be like, "You don't call off. You get paid to be sick." All right, Dad, perfect attendance for 10 years in a row, but he's right, but I think that instills into you at a young age of like, whoa, he's serious, man. I'm not joking. That was his name, and we didn't want to call off. Or I could call my dad beforehand. I'd be like, "Dad, listen, I just had a baby, all right, so I'm not coming in, okay?" That one he let me go on when my daughter was born. He let me go on that.
Hey, you guys, before we end, I wanted to just bring up a topic that is a hot topic, and that's AI, right? So everybody's wondering, right? Everybody's concerned, and how's AI? AI is going to take my job and all of that. And I would just say, here's what I tell everyone: relax.
Yep.
AI is not going to take your job. AI is going to automate some routine work.
Yep.
It's going to make information more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
But as a result of that, employees are going to create value less through information possession and more through interpretation. So I think and using judgment with that information, right? And decision making with that information, because it's just going to be easier to get information. It's not going to be it's not going to be out there taking people's jobs. I think people are concerned and worried about AI, but I just think the question is no longer what do you know? The question is now becoming what can you do with what is known?
That's okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's like, what are you going to do with that information? Like, yeah, you have it, but then what are you going to do with it? Because not everything can be AI all the way. I mean, you can use that for information, but I think that's a great way to look at it. Definitely a great way.
And I will tell you what, we'll do that on part 2. We'd love to have you back. I mean, I can't thank you enough. And Amy, thank you for having her. I mean, whoever your next one is, it seemed like whoever Amy's worked with, if you're out there, you're numbered. You're going to be coming up. So Amy's going to reach out for the retail.
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. So thanks so much for having me. It was really a fun time.
Yes, thanks everybody. Thanks, Amy. And I'm going to talk to you right after this video. Have a great night. Bye-bye.